Anyone who followed the first three phases of the MCU from the beginning must remember that with each new film that came out, the enthusiasm was greater and greater, and the amount of money that Marvel earned from the films kept increasing with each film that came out. It even got to a point where an MCU film not making $1 billion at the box office was considered a failure. However, in recent times, the goal for the MCU films has become being able to pay back the money invested in the movies. I have to wonder what happened. How did Marvel manage to go from making history and being one of the most beloved franchises in the history of cinema to suddenly having constant flops at the box office? That is what I am going to explain in this video. Although nowadays the majority of the public criticizes Marvel a lot, we cannot forget that Marvel changed Hollywood forever. There is a before and after Marvel in Hollywood. No other franchise in the history of cinema has ever had the impact that the MCU had on Hollywood and pop culture in general. It's worth remembering that, because we also can't forget the good things Marvel did. And perhaps it was even because Marvel imposed such high-quality standards that the films after Endgame have been heavily criticized. Apart from a few exceptions, such as Spider-Man No Way Home, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Loki, all the other content that Marvel has released, they have all been criticized, and most of them are failing in a way that no one thought would ever happen. After Phase 3 ended, it seemed like the MCU planning was also over, as if they hadn't thought about continuing the story after Endgame. Now looking closely at the content released after Endgame, it really seems like they only planned the MCU films until they reached Endgame, and after Endgame the MCU was supposed to end. Just look at the series and films released. Many of them add almost nothing to the narrative of the MCU. And that was one of the strongest points, if not the strongest point, of the MCU. Each film had something that contributed to the development of the MCU. But despite all this lack of planning, after all the success they managed to have, not continuing to produce films meant losing money. Marvel even got to a level where any movie they released was guaranteed money in Marvel's coffers. An example of this is the first Captain Marvel film. Even though many Marvel fans didn't like Captain Marvel and didn't like the film still made $1 billion at the box office. That perfectly shows the power that the MCU had. What they must have thought was that even without planning, they just had to release films, even if they weren't of great quality, and they would sell a lot and make a lot of money. And this was true during the first few films after Endgame. Fans in Phase 4 were still very impacted by Endgame and wanted to see more and more of the MCU. But Marvel fans are also intelligent. They were even able to tolerate the drop in quality of the first films after Endgame. But the problem is that the low quality of the MCU content continued and continues to this day. People have reached a point that no matter how good the previous films were, if they start to see the quality of the new movies drop with each film that comes out, they will no longer want to spend their money to go see a film they know they won't like. The mass production that Marvel did after Endgame was one of the main causes of the drop in quality of the films. How were they going to be able to deliver quality films when they were releasing 3 to 4 films a year? They were giving very short deadlines for the VFX artists to work on the films. The artists working on CGI had to work day and night, and even then, they didn't have enough time to deliver something with an acceptable level of quality. Quantity will always limit the quality of a product or service. Many VFX artists who worked for Marvel spoke out about this, and the results are visible. I remember so many Marvel scenes that went viral not for good reasons, but for bad reasons. CGI scenes that are really difficult to look at because of how terrible they are. And obviously, this will ruin the viewer's experience when they watch the movie, because there are moments when I no longer believe in what I'm seeing. Some characters don't seem like real characters. They just remind me that I'm seeing CGI effects. Do you realize how important CGI is? CGI has to make people believe that what they are seeing is real and not a computer effect. The CGI effects in the latest Marvel films can only be considered good if we compare them to films from the 80s and 90s. Because if we compare them to Avatar, oh gosh, let's not do that. Just watch the scene with Yelena blowing up the jet with the bat, She-Hulk, or Andrew Garfield saving MJ. It looks like a PlayStation 2 game. But of course the CGI is just one of the big problems with Marvel's drop in quality. I think something even more important is the film script. For me, this is the worst thing, because in addition to not having quality CGI effects, the quality of the film's content has also suffered a huge drop. Many of the scripts seem like they were written in a hurry and without much thought. Not to mention that they continue to use the Marvel formula from the first 3 phases of the MCU. It's true that the Marvel formula worked very well, but it used to work, it no longer works. People are already saturated with the Marvel formula. The characters aren't even the same anymore. It's obvious that the formula worked well with the original characters. But with these new characters introduced into the MCU, the formula isn't working anymore. And that's what they have to understand. At first it worked very well because it was something very original and unique. Now it's just more of the same. People want new things. This has gotten to the point where I can already predict what the end of the film will be and what will happen in each film I'm watching. In the first act of the film, they present the problem that will arise at the end of the film. In the second act, the heroes get screwed a little. In the third act is the final battle between the film's protagonist against the main villain. And in the end, everything is fine and everyone lives happily ever after. This makes the viewer's experience boring. When I go to see a movie, I want to see something different, something that leaves me excited and shocked. And unfortunately, Marvel hasn't been able to do that in the most recent content they've released. The last film Marvel released that still had that magic from the old MCU was Spider-Man No Way Home. And even so, the appearance of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire was what made the film not become just another banal Marvel film. Because if we stop to think about the script itself, it's full of plot holes. And the film was also full of CGI problems when it was released. Marvel even had to send new versions of the film to theaters with corrected CGI. If even a movie that provided an incredible experience for viewers was riddled with problems, that was a huge sign that something wasn't going in the right direction. And as a viewer and Marvel fan, that makes me very concerned. We can say that the superhero movie market is saturated in general. Quantumania, Shazam 2, and the Marvels are proof of that. People are getting tired of feeling like they're always going to watch the same movie. The only thing that changes are the characters. People feel that they will no longer be surprised when they enter the cinema. Not to mention that these three heroes are characters that just few people have any real interest in. I don't understand how after Brie Larson and Captain Marvel being so criticized by fans, Marvel thought it was a good idea to make another movie about her, with two other characters that no one cares about. It's true that Captain Marvel's first film made $1 billion at the box office. But it's like I said, this film came out at a time when the MCU was reaching the climax of its story. The first Captain Marvel film came out just a few months before Endgame came out. It was obvious that at that point people would want to see the film even if the movie wasn't that good. But now we are entering a phase where if the next films don't work out, Marvel's downfall will be certain and there will be no turning back. Actually, the downfall won't be just Marvel's. It will be DC's too. One affects the other. DC's failures also contributed to this saturation of superhero movies. James Gunn is now going to start his extended DC universe from zero, and a lot of people have high expectations. But if this James Gunn universe fails, DC is done too. The first Superman film will have to be of the highest quality to make this new DCU a success. What's crazy is that the reason for Marvel's success in the beginning is being the cause of its failure now, since the fact that characters like Iron Man, Captain America, T'Challa, Wanda, Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Widow, and Hawkeye are no longer part of the MCU. This causes many people to lose interest. And that might not have been a big issue if the new heroes introduced were interesting and charismatic characters. But the truth is that they are not. All of this together could only result in box office failures and people's lack of interest in Marvel films and superhero films in general. I'm really hopeful that this new Deadpool movie will excite people and that it will be able to get people interested in the MCU again. Because honestly, if this Deadpool movie fails, I don't see a future for this MCU. Maybe they really have to do what James Gunn did with the DCU. Maybe starting over from zero might be a good idea. And if anyone, after all the failures that Marvel has had in the last 4 years, still defends Marvel and thinks that the films are of excellent quality, congratulations. I really have no words for these people. But we, true fans, must praise when we have to praise, like we did in the first 3 phases of the MCU. But when it is necessary to criticize, we also have to know how to do it. We cannot accept low-quality films. We pay to go to the cinema, so if we are paying, it has to be for something of quality and not for something done in a hurry and without passion. But I know that Kevin Feige is working on it. I know he has the capacity to bring Marvel back to the top. Now we just have to wait. But anyway, now I want to know what you think about this. Do you agree with me? What do you think Marvel could do to improve in the next films and put an end to the failures once and for all? Let me know your opinion in the comments. And if you are new to my channel, I want to welcome you and invite you to join the community of this channel and help us reach our goal. I have a goal for this channel that will only be possible to achieve with your help. My goal is to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But that goal is impossible to accomplish without your help, because your subscription is what's going to dictate the growth of this channel. Join us and be part of this incredible journey we are on. Without you, the growth of this channel and my goal will be impossible to accomplish. So thank you in advance.